What do you make of this clampdown? I mean, it is in line with developments in the world, in line with concerns expressed globally, but the timing, quite surprising.
First of all, thanks for having me today. Two things I want to say to that. The first thing is, as you mentioned, increasing regulatory attention on internet sector companies is not a China-specific phenomenon. And the second thing I want to say is that this is not the first time Chinese regulators have taken a particular interest in certain parts of the internet sector, right? So SAMR released these guidelines that we are talking about today. But SAMR only last week actually invited 27 internet platform companies to discuss their practices ahead of Singles Day. And actually this same discussion also happened last year when it came to the e-commerce law and Singles Day at that time. So regulators have taken interest in the internet sector companies previously. And then when you have a look at previous regulations that have been in this sector, your cybersecurity law, your draft personal data law that came out just last week, the e-commerce law that came out last year, and the various actions that these regulators in different sectors have taken against internet-related companies, whether it's video games vetting, whether it's getting the payment companies to get their payment data through a central clearinghouse. You know, there's a lot of developments everywhere in the internet sector in China. Now, when you look at these guidelines specifically, they concentrate on some key issues that have been around for a while. Your exclusivity agreements, your bundling of products, use of data and how that affects pricing offers to different users. So lots of things that are happening, but not just for China, I would say.
Right, Hoi, but this comes at a time when China is making tech innovation a priority. It is a balancing act, right? I mean, allowing or empowering tech companies to become global players, but, you know, being contained at home as well.
That's a very interesting point, and a couple of things I would also say to that. First thing is that from a lawyer's perspective, of course, regulations can be healthy and encourage innovation. So that's the first thing. Again, not specific to China, but when we look at these regulations that were issued by the SAMR the other day, you know, it promotes a healthier ecosystem. It promotes increased competition. It promotes responsible use of power. You know, these are good things for the internet sector. The second thing I would say is that, you know, China, at the end of the day, it is a planned economy. And we have seen lots and lots of examples of the China government working hand in hand with the technology sector in different subsectors, whether we're talking about general technology, whether we're talking about platforms, social media, cryptocurrency. There's lots of different cases where the China government works very closely, hand in hand, with internet sector or technology companies. That will continue. That is not going to stop. And we still have a very positive outlook about our work with and general outlook on technology companies in China and worldwide.
Well, tell me here, Hoi, you know, what do the Chinese authorities want to actually achieve? What is the, you know, as Jacinda just asked you about this balancing act that they have and this dilemma that they face, what's the middle line, if you will?
That's a very interesting question, because when I mentioned China being a planned economy before, the China government manages different interests in the actions that they take. Sometimes they're looking at different sectors. Sometimes they're looking at societal issues. Sometimes they're looking at other issues. So when we see these guidelines being issued, first things first, it is interesting timing, but the guidelines weren't prepared overnight. They have been prepared over a period of time, and there've been a consistent trend in certain guidelines being issued around this time in front of Singles Day, which, as you mentioned earlier, is the biggest shopping day in China annually. So that's number one. The timing itself to us is not particularly surprising. And point number two is that the content of the guidelines is actually not that surprising. Yes, the China government is paying very close attention to technology companies. That is not surprising, both from the China government's history of action and also from worldwide trends. So to us, actually, we will continue to digest this draft with the companies that we work with and talk to. But it's not a particularly surprising development in many ways, and we expect the technology companies to it and continue on.
I just want to get to the worldwide trends bit of what you were saying. But, and one part of my question is, we're seeing the likes of Google and also Amazon getting more and more under the microscope, the regulatory microscope in the US. We've got Amazon, of course, there with the European Commission investigating them too. Now, this is a global trend, isn't it? So, what was over there is over here now in some ways. And when we talk about over here, how much did the Ant Financial suspension of the IPO hurt internet investors?
So as you guys mentioned earlier today, internet stocks are recovering, right? So one thing I would say is that, again, there have been regulator actions, both China and overseas, that have been directed to specific companies in the past, again, whether China or overseas. You know what? Those companies, you would see their stock prices may take a hit in the short term. Maybe their business takes a hit in some ways. But we have seen a very consistent trend of technology companies being able to continually adapt to whatever regulatory challenges they face. And this is the challenge that actually governments and companies face worldwide. These companies contribute a lot to economies worldwide, and governments recognize the value that they bring. At the same time, government is paying increased attention to these companies, which is also a good thing in our mind. So we expect this balancing act to continue. Each government will treat it in different ways, but that's why we're here, to help people.